I thought I'd make a few more comments about Alzheimer's. I made a videotape last week about it and got a lot of negative comments. This guy has a grandmother who he describes as retarded with all because of Alzheimer's, and there was no abuse in her experience that created the illness, and that's what I'm claiming Alzheimer's is. I watched my mother develop this illness that it was much easier for her to say she just forgot something. She never got in trouble or as much trouble if she always used the excuse that she has too much on her plate and there's too much for her to remember. And at the same time, there was too much for her to remember. There was too much on her plate. There was only so much information um, a human brain can receive and be responsible for. And um, years ago, we had dementia, and now we've got this, new title, Alzheimer's. But it's the same illness. It's the same thing going on. And you can see a lot of people that go through war experience, after so many years, they try, from my experience anyways, a lot of people that have been in wars years ago, they don't tell their stories. They don't share too much information. They just cope and deal and forget. And a lot of things that they've seen through war are horrible. They're horror stories in their brains that they know that it's best just to block it out and don't think about it anymore. And yet you can't suppress something that is so humanely devastating. But that's what humanity is basically all about, is when something is so tragic, the brain shuts off. The brain is a miracle worker, and it will do what it needs to do to make you survive. There was another guy that had a brain injury because he was depressed all the time. Now, after his brain injury, his brain is stuck on happy. When you mention a cure, there's no way that they want a cure because they're happy now. Their illness created a life experience where they can now cope a lot happier. Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's, and look at what policies he did. Look at what he did to destroy his own country. And yet, I'm sure he meant well, but was manipulated by a lot of bankers. And I'm pretty sure that's something that he wanted to forget in his experience, and then develop this Alzheimer's. Um, you got to understand how the brain works, that if you don't want to think about something, the brain does will develop the chemical that says don't go there. Every time you have a thought, just visualize yourself making a highway to that thought. And when you have added information to that thought, just think of yourself as making a side road to that highway you're building. And in your brain, you're making, the more you go down that highway to these little branches, that highway, starts to be a super highway. And the path gets bigger and deeper within your brain. And the more you think about a thought, the more that path expands and gets to be more real. It will gain more of your attention because that path is so big and so wide. You're going to be like, have to go down that path. And it will constantly create different roads, side roads that you can take. Every time that you give a thought to something, it will build on that thought. And, eventually it will take up your whole um, consciousness. Your whole awareness of your reality will be based on that one thought, that one superhighway that you experience everything from. Now, if that superhighway says, don't think about this, don't think about this, then the brain will make the chemicals that will block off the potential aspects of the brain that you can use, but your free will says no, don't do that. Just block it off. The body will respond, it will block off the chemicals needed to use an aspect of your brain that keeps your memory alive. Um, so there's a lot of things about our brains that our medical books are just not telling us all. Everything is reversible. Just like you can make that one highway, you can force the brain to make another highway. Now, if it's a case of Alzheimer's, they need to be encouraged. I mean, they are basically living in a world where they have no answers, they have no direction, they have no clue how to get to a different path. We all are doing that. When you want to create something completely different, the brain doesn't know how to build that highway. And so with Alzheimer's, because their brains just are not making the chemicals for them to experience memory, and you require memory to be able to build another highway, it's got to be encouraged by their surroundings, their environment. Lots of times it's family, but it also is community. It's how we experience our world globally. For this guy to say that his grandmother lived a perfect life and now has Alzheimer's, and yet he uses the words retard to describe her mental condition now. I mean, the woman, I'm sure, is lucid at some point in time, and for her to even hear one suggestion that she's retarded, that's something I'm pretty sure she'll want to forget. And if this guy even has a pattern, for him to even use a word like that means there's a pattern to using words that are somewhat insultive that he thinks is, well, it just describes it perfectly. And he's not feeling the compassion of how hurtful some words are, especially to somebody that has an illness, that it's like, have a little compassion. I'm not retarded, I have a memory problem. um, but anyways, if family can see the changes that they need to do within their dynamics, there's potential to change. But to say somebody that, is your grandmother, I'm looking at the age, they were probably born around the 40s or earlier. We live in a world where none of our justice system works, our economic systems works. Women don't have equal rights no matter what place on the planet you live in. Even if you are in wealth, there's so much wrong with our world that to say a female in, your grandmother's age had life wonderful, I question that, because um, you just haven't walked the path in women's shoes to know how much women had to cope and deal with a lot of bullshit. We had to keep a smile on our face, do our best, and try to forget the rest. So when you understand illnesses, you can kind of understand what's going on. And the fact of the matter is that anybody that has Alzheimer's has a reason. They have something there worth forgetting. And what is it? And it can be reversed. This is the new healthcare system, is to recognize the causes of what's creating illness and cure that. And the body does have the potential to heal itself. Alzheimer's would be, I would say, one of the most challenging, but if we had a global awakening, if we could see how we treat each other and everybody made a massive change, that too can be healed. But we have to start at least talking about it, and nobody's talking about it. So just because there's a potential there doesn't mean we're actually going to unfold it. I find that a lot of people don't want to hear the causes of their illnesses, because while we want to see that everything's wrong in the globe today, we don't want to see that any of our actions are actually doing harm to each other. Yet, the only reason the globe is experiencing hardships right now is because there is an elite that's brainwashed you to believe that your actions are healthy when your actions aren't healthy. And while you think you're doing good, you're actually doing harm to somebody else, but you don't know, you don't even recognize that what you're doing is harmful. That's where I mostly lose my mind, is because very good people that with really good intentions are the ones that cause the most problems. And they don't recognize what it is they're doing. That's why it's so freaking easy to forgive now, because I understand that they don't know what it is they're doing. And yes, they may be doing me harm, but like even my ex husband, I know he has no clue what it is he's doing. He does not see himself as a bad guy at all. So it's easy to forgive him, for he knows not what he's doing, but it doesn't mean that I accept the behavior. Eventually, as a globe, we're going to have to understand that if we want to make some changes, changes have to start with us. We need to recognize where we have given away our power, where we could be doing something wrong to each other, and straighten out ourselves. And if we just focused on ourselves and healed ourselves, got some information, recognize that, hey, yeah, okay, maybe there's a potential to heal something, let me give it a try. What have you got to lose? You know, if you end up healing your illnesses, I don't see what the harm is in trying a new belief system. But don't shoot the messenger. It's just new information. And this is why humanity's not ready to hear the truth, because you sort of have to look at your own behaviors and be responsible and accountable and say, where am I in this universe? I've had to look at myself that way. I'm not perfect. I'm pretty sure I've said some words or caused some actions that are painful to other people. And that's the process that I have to understand is, you know, how do I affect my world? And try to constantly be aware of that. And so I mean nobody any harm when I do bring up information, although a lot of negative shit coming at me when I do say something that you don't want to hear. But I got to tell the truth of what I know to be true. And I know without a doubt that this shit is true. Peace out.